Yes, you are not hallucinating. You really read the video title right. I am seriously going to rank every single island in Sea of Thieves on a tier list. If you didn't know, I put polls up on my channel where people can vote for what kind of videos I do. I did not realize so many of you guys were interested in a Sea of Thieves tier list, so I'm jumping on that opportunity and let's get right into it. I'm just going to do this kind of generally off the top of my head. How fun is it? How cool is it? How convenient is it? Size matters too. I'm sorry, some of you guys had to hear that, but size does matter. You know what? Let's just start out with the Outposts. Galleon's Grave Outpost, I'm going to give a solid A tier. It's in a good spot on the map. It's cool. It has that cool ship that you can climb up. Everyone loves climbing up the ship. Daggertooth Outpost, I'm going to give actually a D tier. Daggertooth is probably the worst outpost in the game, just because it's kind of in a weird map location, plus the fact that it's a huge island and it takes forever to walk your loot over. If you're ever selling loot, I do not recommend going to Daggertooth. The only time I would ever go there is if I spawn there. Next outpost, let's do Golden Sands Outpost. Golden Sands, I'm just going to give a solid B. It's kind of large and it's a little bit weird selling your loot there, and it's split up into like 4 different parts. Aside from that, really beautiful island, and it's in a moderately convenient spot. Plunder Outpost, I'm going to give an A tier as well. Really good spot, middle of the map, super cool rock. Short Outpost makes it really easy to sell your loot. You're going to notice is going to be a key deciding factor with the outpost here. Ancient Spire Outpost, yeah, you know what, I'll give Ancient Spire Outpost an A as well. Maybe a B, just because of where it is. You know what, it's easy to sell loot at Ancient Spire, but it's just kind of in like the edge of the map, so most of the time I'd probably just go to Plunder. Sanctuary Outpost, you know what, this one's kind of a B as well. Both of the outposts in the Shores of Plenty are they're just alright. They're both on the edge of the map, so it doesn't really always make sense to go there. Morrow's Peak, I'm going to give a C, just because obviously it's on the complete edge of the map. You're probably never going to go there. It's semi-convenient to sell your loot there, minus the fact that there's literally a volcano blowing you up every 10 minutes, so that obviously bumps it down a little bit. Okay, so we've done all the outposts. I'm gonna save all of the Devil's Roar Islands for last. We'll do those last. I don't know how the Spoils of Plenty store got on here, except none of the other Hunter's Call posts are on this list. I don't know. I'm just gonna put it down in D just because I don't know why they included this in the list and none of the other ones. Next up, Smuggler's Bay. You know what? I'm sorry. I gotta give it a C. This is probably the #1 most annoying and frustrating island to do quests on, except for one more. We'll see if these players know what the other island is, and I'll talk about it in a second. This is probably the most frustrating island to get on quests. It's in the top left of the map. It's humongous. You have to park in the middle of this little lake, which is tough. You can crash your ship and you're completely trapped inside of there once you're parked in there. You know what, I'm gonna bump it down to D. This is just generally kind of like a really frustrating island to deal with whenever you get it. Sailor's Bounty, I gotta give it an A. Super cool. All the quests are super easy because of the island nature of it. Makes all chest quests and skeleton quests and everything super easy. You can park right up next to it. You can use your cannons for pretty much anything. Easy to get out of. Plus there's a super cool tall tale hidden under the island, which if you know, you know. Cannon Cove, C tier. It's, you know, it's just kind of one of those islands. It's just around. It's just one of the basic kind of mundane islands. Nothing really that special going on to it. Same with Crescent Isle. Same reasoning there. It's just kind of, you know, normal island. Nothing crazy going on. Lone Cove. You know what? Lone Cove is the same thing, but I'm actually going to give it a B just because it looks cool. It has a cool cave by the water and it looks cool. Mermaid's Hideaway, I'm also going to give it a B. I know it's one of the kind of more common mundane islands, but I will say it is easy for doing quests and it does have a cool underwater pool. Also, really good fishing spot, if you didn't know. Wanderer's Refuge, D tier. This island is just a stink sack. It's a mile long. It's super tall, so it's impossible to do quests on it. It's in the middle of one of the most traveled areas, so it's just like a giant brick wall preventing you from sailing around the map, and it's honestly just one of my least favorite islands. Crook's Hollow, I'm actually going to give an A tier because it is in a really nice spot. Crook's Hollow is one of the perfect islands for tucking. Whenever you have someone doing a Fort of the Damned, or actually really any fort in that area, Crook's Hollow is the place to hide your ship behind for tucking. It's swimming distance from a lot of different islands, which is perfect. Questing on it is pretty easy. It's close to outposts. You know what? It's got everything going on for it. You know what? Actually, I'm gonna bump Crook's Hollow up to S tier for all the following reasons. It has so much going on for it. Plus, it's in the middle of the map. Next up, we have Devil's Ridge. I'm gonna give it a B tier. Only reason I'm giving it a B tier is because there's a really good fishing spot on that island. If you didn't know, it's right here in that little pool. I think I have a video about it. Actually, I'll put it up right now. Next up, Discovery Ridge, C tier. You know, just kind of one of those islands. It's a little bit big, a little bit boring. Plunder Valley, I'm going to give a C tier just because of the nature of big islands. It's just kind of frustrating to deal with, harder to do questing. This one is in a slightly better map spot though. Plus it doesn't have this big bay, which totally wrecks your chances of surviving a ship battle. Sharkbait Cove, I'll give that puppy a B tier. Sharkbait Cove is pretty easy for digs. It's pretty easy for most quests. It has a lot of ammo crates. Downside is it is in the bottom left corner of the map. It's not super close to any outposts, and it is kind of easy to get snuck up on. Snake Island, same kind of logic as Crook's Hollow. It's in a really nice spot on the map for tucking. It's swimming distance to a lot of places. Not quite the same level of utility as Crook's Hollow, but still viable. Still a very viable island. Thieves Haven, I'm going to give an A tier as well. Super cool island for questing. I may be biased because I've done a ridiculous amount of Athena quests on that island, so I know it like the palm of my hand. But honestly, I do think it's a cool island. I think the design of it is super cool. Whereas for Smuggler's Bay, I don't like the fact that it has this bay. With Thieves Haven, it works because it has multiple entrances and exits. So it actually can be a really good way to juke people. Kraken's Fall, this island is just terrible. The elevation difference on this island just makes it a total wet sock for questing. Half the time you're on that island, you're gonna walk all the way up to the top, realize, oh, whoops, my chest is actually 2 feet away, but it's 50 feet down on the bottom. You have to jump off, kill yourself, respawn, go back over to that same spot, and then you realize, oh no, it actually was on the top. Walk all the way around, walk all the way back up to the top, and yeah, I think you get my point. Martyr's Arch is C tier. It's not a bad island. It's just kind of in the middle of nowhere. So I have probably only been to that island like 10 times ever. If you know, you know. Old Faithful Island is the only island on the tier list that I will put as F tier. It is by far the worst island in the game for questing. In terms of questing, it's impossible. Dig missions, good luck. You're going to be there for hours. Riddle missions, good luck. You're going to be there for hours. Every part of the island looks exactly the same. There's 100 different landmarks. So unless you have some sort of guide up, I mean, seriously, good luck doing anything on that island ever. Not to mention the fact that it's in the top of the map. It's not really that close to very many outposts, right? It's close to Daggertooth, but we have Daggertooth in D tier, so we're not even going to count that. Shipwreck Bay, I'm actually going to put a B tier. It is kind of a frustrating island, but it can be really useful for jukes. Digs are not that hard on that island because the main island is actually relatively small, so questing and stuff is not that hard. I think it actually gets a lot of utility for jukes. You know what? I'm actually going to bump it up to A tier because it does actually get a lot of utility for ship fights. Crooked Masts, I'll put that at B tier. It can be useful occasionally for a tuck. Other than that, it has a lot of snakes. That's just one of the islands that I can remember off the top of my head that just has a lot of snakes, which just makes the whole thing kind of a plop. Sunken Grove, C tier. You know what? It's just kind of a mid island. I don't really have that much else to say. It's just a kind of boring mid island. All right, now we're on the small islands. I am going to pick and choose a couple of the small islands that I do actually think are good. We have Castaway Isle, which I'm going to put in an A tier because of its utility. It's super close to Fort of the Damned and Reaper's Hideout. Fool's Lagoon, same logic, just not as close to either one of the islands, so I'm going to put it B tier. It's in a semi-useful spot. This one, off the top of my head, I know Booty Isle, aptly named Booty Isle, is actually booty. It sucks. It's just in the worst spot on the map. It's at the bottom of the map. If you have less than 1,000 hours on the game, you honestly may not have ever been to the island or will never go to the island just because of its terrible spot. But it does have a neighbor. Its neighbor is Lookout Point. I'm going to put this one in A tier. I think we all know why. I'm just going to move on. The only other notable one I would say I'm going to put a B tier is Laguna Whispers. Only reason it's B tier is because it has a shop on it, which is kind of cool. Other than that, all the small islands are just going to go in D tier. Sorry if some of you are like small island fanboys, but most of these puppies just don't cut it. They're just kind of boring, you know. It's just filler. It's just filler stuff, really. Now, I'm not necessarily saying all of these islands are bad per se, but are they super like riveting, interesting? No. I mean, none of them are really unique. They're all pretty similar to each other. I think they make the environment of the game better just to see all the small islands around you, and they can all be kind of useful for just like filling up your barrels. Other than that, though, it's just, you know, they're all kind of the same. We're finally on to the Devil's Roar Islands. I'm very excited for this one. I'm just going to disregard the fact that all of these islands blow up every 10 minutes. If I was counting the fact that they blow up every 10 minutes, I will put all of these ones in F. So I think I'm just gonna disregard that fact so that we can move on with the tier list. Again, you know, we have our small islands, which kind of just get plopped down into D tier. Sorry, guys. Except for Forsaken Brink, which is the only one that I'll put at B tier just because it's kind of like an intermediary island between Ancient Spire Outpost and Morto's Peak. It's actually close to the Outpost and generally does not get blown up by a volcano. So that's the only one that's going to go in B. Aside from that, we have Ashen Reaches. Ashen Reaches, probably my least favorite island out of all of them. I'm going to put it in D. It's bottom of the map. It's generally kind of hard to do digs and traverse because of the triple levels. Devil's Thirst may be an A tier actually because it has a lot of ammo crates. It has ammo crates, it has barrels, it has little islands, and it's relatively small, which makes doing digs easier. Obviously, this is disregarding eruptions. If we're counting eruptions, obviously, it's not as good. Ruby's Fall, I'm going to put up at A tier with it. Kind of same reasoning. Ammo crates, small island, makes questing easy. It does actually have, it has one of the little trader guys on it as well. It has like a merchant trader or cargo runner or whatever you want to call them, which is just kind of a cool addition to the island. Flintlock Peninsula is going to get a C tier. This one, the island's just too big to make most questing viable. The water in the middle does actually make it a little bit easier to traverse with a sword. It's kind of a crapshoot for riddles and chests just because of how similar the whole island looks and how big it is. And then finally, Fetcher's Rest, I'm going to just lob it in there with it. Identical reasoning, almost identical islands, just kind of the inverse of each other. I do kind of want to move one other island up to S just so it's not Crook's Hollow only. I would have to, you know what, I'd have to pick Plunder Outpost. If I have to move anything up to S, I'm going to pick Plunder Outpost just because of its close proximity to all the world events and kind of center of the map, close to Fort of the Damned, close to a couple forts, close to Crook's Hollow. It's just close to everything. Yeah, just solid island. So yeah. This is the tier list. I am actually going to try and do more Sea of Thieves content. I do still like Sea of Thieves. I don't have that much time to play video games anymore. I spend a lot of time editing and a lot of time playing Overwatch as well, but I will try and get back on it. So I will see you guys in the next video.